I am a science student who very quickly realized that probably sciences is not, because in 2005 when I was doing sciences, and I did my schooling and college from Delhi, it had only two options of being a doctor or an engineer, right? And there was literally nothing else, especially if you're a science student. And I had I think that time, inkling and thankfully the support of the parents to be allowed to pursue something else.
Yeah.
So one of the most remarkable things that happened for me was that GE, that time GE Capital, one of the biggest corporates in the world, had floated a very unique program called Learn While You Earn, and it got, through some homework and own research. There was no Google, by the way, that time, or not at least as efficient. It was still newspapers.
This which year?
This is 2005.
2005.
Right. And so, yeah, found about it, cracked that. And that fundamentally changed my entire work journey. So I pursued my bachelor's as an open course, which is still known as like open schools across, even in Bombay, Delhi, everywhere, universities you can pursue. So I was doing that because, again, degree was needed. But my real education really always happened at work. So I think since I've been 17 and now I'm 35, you might want to not disclose that. Yeah, since last 18 years, I've been working every year, man, because my education has just been at work. And so the path was essentially that the first 4 to 5 years, probably among the youngest kid almost on the block, because with G you had all kind of leaders and senior people, and at least with age you had a lot of people. So that was a big part of education. How do you speak? How do you write a proper email? How do you conduct yourself? How do you talk to an American client? All of those things were part of the first 4 years I was there. Then I also grew there as a people manager, and that was a complete baller. At 23, 24, I was sent to Hyderabad. I had never left home. Setting up your life and then managing a team of 25, 30 people, another different set of experience completely. But while I was doing all of that, making really good money while the friends were still in college, I used to earn like 22,000 rupees, which was mad. You didn't know what to do with that much money when you were 22. But yeah, I think that time there was also a big realization that I had a massive creative inkling that needed some scratching. And I realized that as much as I enjoy this, but this is not satiating the need of what I feel is work. And that's what sent me in the direction of why I'm here today, I guess, which is where building my expertise in creating content and marketing of content. And then I think since then, primarily my path has been where I've been in all kinds of media. So last 1 decade has been just spent with, I've been with ZTV, which was the thing. So I did my master's in Delhi from University of JNU Associated University. So I did my master's from IIMC, which is an Institute of Mass Communication. It's known for producing the best journalists in the country. And ZTV had come to actually find journalists, but they found my kind of profile compelling because I'd already worked. And they actually hired me for one of the roles that they came to have for MBAs.
Okay.
They come to Gurgaon and Ghaziabad and all that. So yeah, I think that was like again a turning point in life. I thought Bombay jayenge, thoda project karenge, वापस आ जाएंगे. But I think it was a one-way door. My first job was at ZTV. I was a brand manager there. Completely new world. None of the work experience mattered except for how do you hold yourself in an office. Blew my mind of what all is possible. How do you reach? The fact that, by the way, something most people wouldn't know, especially now that TV is getting out of headlines, but TV is still very, very much present when you think of Bharat and the large Indias that exist in India. When you think of content, TV goes deep. TV goes far deeper than YouTube and a lot of other things that are still considered to be huge, right? So that was a crazy learning experience. Did city visits in Baroda, Surat, Rajkot, ATL kaise hota hai, TV kaise hota hai. So that is again, like I said, so work has always been my college, and I always consider even today my work as not just philosophically, like I mean it, like if every 3 months I'm not doing something that is going to put me on the edge and give me some level of discomfort, ki yaar ye nahi aata, then I'll find something, because that's when you truly, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not learning, right? This is like my standard sticker. I tell to everyone that if you're not uncomfortable, you're not learning, right? So at Z learned big things about India, big things about क्या हमारी market है, लोग कैसे content consume करते हैं, activations कैसे करते हैं. Then from there went to Viacom, which was movies, extremely different world, really exciting. Also opened tons of access to talent. So you started learning how do you deal with talent, how do you create content with talent. That's a different art altogether. You may be a good writer, but to be a good director and a producer, you need different skill sets, right? So, by the way, which is where one of the most exciting projects of my life I've done was Gangs of Wasseypur. Still probably one of the most cult movies. Most people didn't watch it in theaters, but still watch it on digital.
That's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah. So again, and learned about कि movies को marketing लगती है, क्यों लगती है, and one of the leaders used to tell me movies are like vegetables. after a weekend, no one consumes it, right? And when you think of it like shit, someone spent 50 crores making a movie, and all of a sudden, if you don't make sure that your audience gets to know it in the right time, in the right context, after 2 weekends, no one cares about an old movie, right? I mean, sure, in the OTT world, you still have a longer life, but in the theater world,
It doesn't.
right?
Yeah.
So, 3.5 years there, super exciting stuff. Did international movies. So, by the way, Viacom is also a Paramount sister company, right?
Okay.
So, we did tons of international releases, Transformers, Mission Impossible series. So, got first-hand experience of dealing with international studios. And most importantly, learned how social is going to change the game.
Yeah.
That's where I really started becoming who I am or what my eventually career progressed to be. Is you early realize that everyone is pivoting very quickly to digital. But in this massive market of movies, there is no playbook that exists.
Yeah.
And I think we got a super supportive team and great leadership. So did some cool stuff there. Then from there went to book my show because I got very curious about saying धंधा क्या है. Because eventually started realizing that most of the tickets are not being sold at box office. जैसे पहले क्या होता था, आप availability देखते थे, घर से कोई जाता था, ticket खरीद के लाता था, शाम की ticket हो गई.
Yes.
Right? And then very quickly while I was at Viacom, it started changing, like almost someone pulled the rug under our feet, where we are getting more and more numbers that 30%, 40%, 50% of all our collection is now coming from this one website.
Book my show.
Book my show. And then of course Paytm came in play later, but primarily it was Book My Show. It still is Book My Show. And yeah, so that got me again. So I've always been driven by curiosity, frankly. Again, like I said, learning, right? That is very important. So while I was enjoying everything, I was like, yeah, धंधा समझना है. कि मतलब movies कर ली, but ये हो कैसे रहा है, big कैसे रहा है, where, how do people buy, how can I influence? So I felt like I understood how do you create awareness at scale.
Yeah.
But how do I finally influence this person to say, अच्छा ticket कैसे लो?
Yeah.
And that is always different. You might get sold on saying ये AC best है, but जब तुम क्रोमा में घुसते हो, वजह स्टोर में घुसते हो ना, वो बहुत अलग गेम होता है. जब तुम खरीदने वाले होते हो, that mindset is very different from when you are considering something.
Yeah.
So went to book my show, spent a year and a half there, got my first hit of working with a tech company. The other thing was I was working with media companies where I was doing digital. So you are always this guy saying digital marketing karta hai. There was like, one niche function.
Yeah.
And the moment you go to a tech company, sabhi digital kar rahe. Like that word goes out.
Yes,
No one says digital anymore because that's the default, right? Like, and that's even considered like today. सभी digitally कर रहे हैं, right? So it was no more a label. So you had to also buckle up and learn things where just having that label of digital marketing wasn't enough. You had to learn. And I dabbled with business development and some of that stuff there, which is another thing that I've also always taken, and I meant it when I say that I've taken curiosity and learning, because technically going to book my show at that time made no sense. You had tons of good offers to go to other studios, but I really want to understand sales and BD. So I went to book.
You were doing sales at Book My Show?
I was doing business development at
nice,
Book My Show.
Nice.
And I was using everything I've learned at marketing to make sexy pitches and, doing best in class content, which will help me sell, but I was not doing marketing.
Makes sense.
And then 2016, Amazon came around. People are talking about this OTT is a thing. And, we as people who have done movie marketing used to think, yaar, itani piracy hai, because we've dealt with it so closely. Like, kaun India mein paisa dega, content dekhne ka. Right? And of course, this is obviously where you learn as you grow, and you learn that many things that you do are important, but the macro factors are so much important. The fact that smartphone फट जाएगा, the fact that data cheap हो जाएगा, is far more important for why OTTs are successful than all marketing put together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Phone नहीं होगा आपके हाथ में तो आप कितना OTT
I get the point.
Right? So I think 2016, Amazon came along. I was part of the 5-6 people who launched Prime Video in India. Literally have seen and influenced. This is what I feel very proud of with the content marketing and the work that I've done, and I've led social for Prime Video, is for something that didn't exist as a use case. You build a use case, then you build validation, then you build preference, and that's the journey, right? You first get someone to say कि ये क्यों important है. Then you start telling everyone saying यार तुमको original content देखना चाहिए. Then you get to a point of saying कि मेरा original content देखना चाहिए, right? And so I think that's where I'll kind of sum up. Of course, and with Prime Video, you learned scale like insane, right? There is content and there is content at scale. Sure, anyone can manage a great one Instagram handle, but when you have 50 movies and 20 original shows and, cricket, and then you have, South Indian movies coming to you, how do you manage that? How do you make sure that you're doing innovative work, but at scale? How do you manage large investments? Because, I remember in media, अभी भी क्या होता है कि आप जाओगे तो usually marketing head को बोलेंगे यार थोड़ा और पैसे दे दे, right? But all of a sudden when you have the money, or someone says, oh, the question is changed. Here is me giving you X $million, or here is me giving you X dollars. How will you spend it well? that's a massive learning moment because now you have the money, now you have to spend it well, you have to show results, right? So I think that was one of the big things in content that I've learned at Prime. And yeah, about a year back, I moved to IMDb. I love launching businesses. So IMDb has been there, of course, for the longest time, but it is still something that is primarily catering to the Western part of the world or more international content sensibilities of Indians. And now Indians want Indian content, local content, regional content, which is why we are here. And we are now building IMDb for Indian fans or content of Indian fans in India and across the world. So Diwali of 2016 is when I joined. I still remember October is when I joined, and उस time दिवाली पे बात चल रही थी, दिवाली पे launch करेंगे, दिवाली पे करेंगे. And of course, that's when, in fact, I was just telling.
Any famous movie that was getting launched this time pe? Around the launch of Prime?
No, yeah, not at all. In fact, I mean, movie would be there. I don't remember the movie, frankly, but none of the popular movies were even considered as a viable option on an OTT.
Okay.
Right?
Okay, yeah.
Think of maybe the first year of paper content where I don't think any social media agency would remotely even think of giving you or giving paper content saying हमारा content बना दो.
Yeah.
So now I'm sure you're probably creating barrage of managing pages entirely on paper content technology, right? So I think the early days, in fact, since you asked, the fascinating part is I joined Amazon not to do social media marketing and content because I felt I'd done that enough and my learning was good enough and I can be outside also and keep myself on the edge of knowing what's happening. I joined actually to learn marketing automation and that's what I did for the first 2 years.
Nice.
So basically I'm responsible. So my role actually in the first 2 years, the mahal was that we were all learning about saying digital pe kaise hoga. There was also a lot of convincing almost despite the investments or despite all the things that Amazon will bring that was now considered default. It wasn't considered default then. To also convince studios and key talent to say, yaar, come to us and work with us. And we had to show merit ki how we will deliver a great experience, right? Because otherwise it was like, for most people it used to be YouTube तो है तो अभी आप क्या नया कर रहे हो?
हाँ समझ गया.
Right? मतलब अगर मुझे पिक्चर डालनी भी है गूगल बोल रहा है कि रेंट पे मैं डाल सकता हूँ कि नई पिक्चर मैं आपके पास क्यों आऊँ? So some of those things which are seeming now such an obvious thing that obviously you know what a Prime Video is and Netflix is and you know a Hotstar and all that is so different. But that time it wasn't considered. It was just like कि हाँ तू online डालेगा ना video. Therefore that was also a very beautiful part of my career where I learned tons about product. And also because you're in Bombay and Prime Video is primarily a Seattle-based company, right? Or at least that time Seattle. Now of course a lot of it is in LA. Every time we had a question, we had to wait a night because we'll post a question. Someone will respond to it in the night and next day you come back to office and stay late in the night to kind of understand ki kya hua. Because even though there was Bangalore, Amazon retail, but you know, you didn't have much the retail knowledge was still limited and we were learning a lot about, you know, entertainment. So yeah, it was a very interesting time.
Oh, this is very exciting to see, right? अब तो बहुत common लगता है, अब लगता है.
Yeah, so much of it is common knowledge.
Now it is very common, but I think I now I realize back in 2016 what it used to be like.
Yeah. 7 years, man. Like now it feels time where it goes.
And I am pretty sure, right? I mean, you've understood the way people consume content, right?
Yeah.
That understanding, I hope, is really, really massive because, you know, I was recently reading one of the books which actually talks about how elections happen in India, basically.
Right.
And in that book, I'm a very diehard fan of understanding demographics.
Yeah.
So I was understanding that India mein demographics, we are the most populous country in the world.
Sure.
Now, right?
Sure.
And अलग-अलग एक्सेस होते हैं. It's a multi-dimensional world where एक एक्सेस आपका जेंडर का हो गया, एक एक्सेस आपका पे पैरिटी हो गया, एक आपका एज हो गया.
इस तरीके से काट सकते हो
बेसिकली, और उसको जो एंगल पे चाहो काट सकते हैं.
करेक्ट.
तो मैं इलेक्शंस इसलिए बता रहा हूँ बिकॉज इलेक्शंस बहुत अजीब तरीके से होता है. इट्स लाइक एवरी लास्ट माइल के ऊपर पे ट्रस्ट फैक्टर है. कोई भी एक इंसान मिस्टेक कर दे तो टेम्परिंग करना बहुत आसान है. करेक्ट. सो हाउ एवरीथिंग रन्स ऑन ट्रस्ट, राइट? एंड दैट्स वेयर आई एक्चुअली अंडरस्टूड द डेमोग्राफिक्स ऑफ द कंट्री. सो अभी लगता है ना कि यार ये कंटेंट चलेगा या नहीं चलेगा, ये हमारा परसेप्शन उसका लिए फायदेमंद नहीं है. बिकॉज लाइक यू सेड, टीवी आज भी उतना ही डीप डाउन है.
नो मैटर हाउ मच वी एज आवर ओन बायस एंड आवर echo chamber. So to what you're saying, so the one thing that so if I have to really condense some of the key things I've learned through this, right? Never believe your echo chamber.
Yeah.
That is the biggest flaw. If you're in the dhanda of content, of course it will always be, you have to have faith in your gut. You have to have faith in what you're putting out, but that is about vision. बट टू अज्यूम क्योंकि मुझे पसंद है या मेरे 3 दोस्त बोल रहे हैं, मेरी फीड पे आ रहा है,
doesn't mean anything.
is the stupidest way of doing it. If you're making it for skate, if you're putting a story where you want to impress your friends, then your audience is perfect. But if you're making a piece of show, content, podcast, a PPT,
which is in most cases,
you're creating for a larger scale. You have to find ways to uninform your bias.
Yes.
So in content, I've actually learned that the biggest part is unlearning and how do you check your bias, because it is always so convenient to say कि हाँ मेरी वाइफ को, मेरी गर्लफ्रेंड को, मेरे दोस्त को, मेरे भाई को पसंद आ रहा है तो दुनिया को पसंद आ रहा होगा. But the world, how it consumes and what they consume is so different and so unintuitive versus what you will believe.
Yeah.
Like the fact, something so small, right? To this point, for example, why do you think right now in 2023 all of a sudden everyone is hyper aware about South Indian cinema? What is the biggest hypothesis?
I mean, 2023 में South Indian cinema again, because lot of action, they got a lot of, like at the end of it थोड़ा सा fascination आ गया एकदम से people का, because of the action and the fast moving stuff that
unique content बन रहा है. So that's one definite point. But in my humble opinion, what do I believe is the game changer of why even a young person today who doesn't speak Tamil, Telugu at all, or probably doesn't even have a Allu Arjun fandom or like a Vijay Sethupathi fandom. Because fundamentally what happened in lockdown and through the lockdown is that when OTTs became the primary means of consumption, or primarily the big place of consumption, for the first time, India at large was open to consuming South Indian content. Two reasons: A, it was dubbed beautifully, latest content. इससे पहले Zee, Sony सबने in fact channel चलाए हुए जो South Indian content को हिंदी डब होता था. So this is not an old thing. This is not a new thing. It's a very old thing. Channel चलते थे उसके ऊपर. Remember हमारे South Indian content डब होके Zee cinema पे भी आता है 9 बजे. But latest movie, dubbed well, subbed well, great best in class quality, made available to country at large. We had great bandwidth. For the first time, people experienced this belt, HSM belt, experienced that part of content at scale and realized, shit, this is so good.
Yeah, I am one of those users. I now realize मैंने क्या देखा था, मैंने प्राइम पे कुछ ना कुछ देखी है.
सारा साउथ का पुष्पा and all the big ones. Yeah, so I go through. I'm talking about the large ones.
Kantara and all of these. Jai Bhim. These movies I also saw on Prime itself. Like, I'm a big movie buff. Okay, so I watch like one movie. Probably I watch 2 to 3 movies every week. So and I'll consume it on OTT only. Sure. In that case.
Yeah.
But I'm very curious to understand from you, right? Because the consumption patterns अपने country में at large, it's like unbiased, right? It has to be unbiased because वो data बता देता है.
Yeah. Data ही सिर्फ बता सकता है. That's the point.
बताएगा. That's the सच्चाई. So I've been also scolding some of my friends these days, saying वो बोलते हैं यार ये content creator तो बहुत cringy है, ये ऐसा है. Because now I'm on the other side of the table, I'm like कि तुम्हारे लिए cringy हो सकता है, but फिर भी बंदा पैसे कमा रहा है. Because there's a huge audience who is consuming it, right?
बिल्कुल, and that is what I think that is the power of now what you all are doing and where we are heading, and we are already there, is that as a creator, whatever capacity you are, whether you are a like a founder of a platform or whether you are a person who writes a podcast and puts out, right, you have to be very aware कि मैं echo chamber में नहीं हूँ. लेकिन when you are a consumer, the world has moved where you can go into any hyper niche. And if you are doing it well, you will not even know a category exists करती है. Because someone has been doing something, now you're like, oh shit, dude, like Bhuvan Bam, I'm a huge fan. Matlab, I love YouTube, by the way. Personally, my most favorite platform outside of what I do for a living is YouTube. I think everything from entertainment, knowledge, schooling, a big
pioneers है ना, मतलब उन्होंने ये बनाया.
No, I'm saying what's available also, and how well their algo works in terms of echo, right? Bhuvan Bam did something where he's speaking to himself as 3 people and made vines and then came to YouTube. Did anyone come to anyone and say, oh, we want to see a same boy enacting himself in 3 versions? No, right? So, you're right. Cringy is a loose way of saying something you don't like, but if you are a creator or if you're in the business, you have to have a keen eye on saying, ये क्या need fulfill कर रहा है boss, जिसकी वजह से audience आ रही है.
Exactly.
So I think 2 parts. So what you're asking, if I have to sum it down, right? So one question you're saying is, how have you seen the social content marketing game evolve? So it is the content you create for marketing evolve. So I'll speak to that. And second is, what is the fundamental difference when you do something for a Prime Video or a Netflix kind of a brand where you're creating cool stuff to bring in validation and interest, etc., versus what is it when you are building social for a brand which is just, it's a publisher.
It's a publisher brand,
So I'll take both. So I think The first one I would say, and this was a big learning that happened very early on. And you know, the beauty with social is that everything that you put out is for everyone to see and consume,
Yeah.
and also replicate.
Yeah.
Right? तो तुम्हारा कोई भी ट्रेड सीक्रेट नहीं है. अगर तुम कुछ अच्छा कर रहे हो सबको दिख रहा है और वो within a week भी copy हो सकता है. So you have to always be on edge and keep upping yourself. Otherwise you will get irrelevant or me too very quickly, like as a one more in the same category page.
Yeah.
Right? So I think so one of the big things, if I have to tell you one big learning, right? If I have to condense that, it may not hold true for all different brands because now with social, earlier जो definition होती थी बहुत ही होता था कि ये marketing के लिए पेज है. अभी social के बहुत use cases हैं. लोग आज की डेट में बड़े बड़े ई कॉमर्स धंधे चला रहे हैं, कपड़े बेच रहे हैं, योगर्ट बेच रहे हैं, फ्लेवर्ड बटर बेच रहे हैं, सिर्फ इंस्टाग्राम पे बेच रहे हैं. सो सोशल हैज ऑब्वियसली नाउ इवॉल्व्ड टू डू मेनी मोर थिंग्स, बट इन द क्लासिक सेंस ऑफ ब्रांड मार्केटिंग वाया सोशल, माय सिंगल defining learning for anyone who's interested in doing this well, the moment you will realize that your handle is actually a disturbance in your followers feed, you will start thinking about your content completely differently. It is not your Instagram, your Twitter is not a place where you post flyers and poster कि मेरे 20% कम हो गया, मेरे पास ये आके देख लो, मेरे पास ये नया है. No one cares. But if you will start truly behaving like one of the friends or one of the pages that this person wants to follow, you have cracked it. Therefore, your feed should be like a great movie where your messaging or your marketing is integrated versus your entire feed just being the hardcore messaging.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why a Prime and a Netflix and a Dunzo and some of the other really, I think, cutting edge Zomatos, you love the content because they are
relatable.
They are just doing memes. They are doing something which is topical. They're having an opinion on what happened at a trending kind of moment, and also telling you, "Acha, by the way, yeah." Most brands are very late to the party to realize that if you want someone to be involved with you, Instagram and Twitter is my safe space. When you think of an individual, I come there to chill.
Yeah.
If you're going to eat my brain and give me some spammy stuff there, I'm going to say, bro, unfollow instantly. But if you will continue to be interesting to me and every now and then say, bhai, ye bhi dekh le, ye bhi aa raha hai. Even for an entertainment category, right? We have tried and we have several pages जहाँ पे वो सिर्फ लगातार poster, trailer, show की photo, you will not get engagement because it feels you are pushing content to me.
Very interesting.
Versus the same thing I can put in a form of a meme, same thing I can put in a form of something else and it will feel interesting. So I think that's my one key learning of how to do it well. YouTube पे आप वीडियो डिस्कवरी के लिए जा रहे हो, गिव दैट काइंड ऑफ कंटेंट, गिव लॉन्ग टेल स्केच देयर, डोंट पुट अ स्केच ऑन इंस्टा, इट वोंट पॉप, यू कैन मेक द बेस्ट स्केच, इट वोंट वर्क because Insta is what this YouTube is लगा के तुम बैठे हुए हो. So I think just respecting the platform
is very insightful and one of the most insightful insights I have ever had in terms of how social media marketing is to be looked upon. Of course ये common sense से तो समझ ही जाता है.
हाँ, but वो लाइफ में मोस्टली सबसे भारी चीजें सबसे सिंपल ही होती हैं, बस अप्लाई नहीं कर पाते.
Yeah.
So we did something called Best Interview Ever with Amir, which was right before Lal Singh Chaddha, and we got everything from cape of Andaz Apna to Lagan ka actual bat in that video, and you'll see I think it's an interesting piece. But the point of doing that was, of course, जो IMDb पे आके देखेगा वो देखेगा, but even when I put it on social, at least we believe and we are seeing things moving in the right direction, that people find that unit, that 2-minute or 3-minute video, and they're like, wow man, IMDb पे ये भी होता है. So that is the use, and therefore I think as a publisher, at least, and I'm not saying that will apply for everyone, but I think at least for us, the framework is to say how do we deliver great stuff that we have on IMDb, on the app, on the platform. I had in fact recently seen this generative AI video platform called Taza Khabar or something like that, and they are able to just, when you put text to it, they have basically,
that's the most basic part of it. The avatar comes up and starts speaking it. That's the most basic part of it. And after this chat, I'll show you some things. You'll be very fascinated to do that because we're just playing around with technology and we're seeing, where is this all going towards?
Right.
See, it sounds fascinating and all.
Right.
इसका application बहुत curious important.
Correct.
ChatGPT भी बहुत fascinating था, बच्चे कॉलेज के पेपर्स उससे लिख रहे हैं.
Sure.
But अगर मैं आज पूछूं कि effectively कौन सी कंपनी उसको अपने workflow में immediately लेगी, that's a question mark again.
Correct.
And I'm asking you also, say, do you use ChatGPT to write your captions? Probably
Absolutely not.
But you know about that technology.
Absolutely.
I'm also trying to understand how are you looking at this.
Where is the bridge? Where is the bridge?
Factor there.
So this is something, it's a live question, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I really,
Everyone is just trying to make an opinion on it, but
not just opinion. In my head I'm thinking game plan. So the question is relevant. So it's like, it's to say that, oh, हम scooter पे हैं, गाड़ी आ गई है, तो you can't avoid it. You have to now think कि गाड़ी का license कहाँ से apply करना है, right? So it's that stage for, I think, again, and I can only speak to where we are today or what we're thinking. We're still in an exploration stage,
makes
I would
sense,
say.
of course.
Because what happens in context with smaller shops, smaller startups, single people setup who will be faster to adopt it is that you take that call and you move fast with it. But as you think of corporates or even media companies, many setups, any new technology, something as simple as, you know, even for example, social media as a technology. I'm saying AI तो बहुत आएगी. I'm saying social media as a technology when it in now being heavy on social. And you'll be like, भाई क्या बात कर रहे हो? 10 साल से social popular है ना? आप अभी क्यों कर रहे हो? Because knowing something and its capability of how well it will do, however, adapting it within the system to make sure the 15 parties who make the business happen will adopt it and your end consumer validates it. That's where I think the delay or the bridge will happen. The good part in what is happening with ChatGPT or Pepper Content, etc., is that this is not AI technology which is powering something on the back end or optimizing your operation or factory operation. This is producing content which today you can show evidence saying we wrote 20 captions or we wrote 20 tweets, see they are being liked.
Yeah.
And so to me, I think the only thing, if I have to be bluntly honest, what is stopping this from getting adapted even faster, and it is going to happen, it's inevitable, is that people like me and many people like me across the country and the world, you know, who are marketeers or, you know, people in corporate different kind of positions, our own learning curve not being fast enough or just where it's also around the corner is going to decide how quickly we implement it.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's where it will boil down to eventually. Because once I learn it or once I know कैसे चलता है या कैसे इसका फायदा है, there is no reason I will not implement it.
Makes sense.
But जब तक मैं उस रूम में ही नहीं घुसा, मुझे पता ही नहीं ये चीज करती क्या है, till that time I'll keep consuming it as a good news and like wow, share something on LinkedIn. But I will not go and fundamentally, okay, look at my setup of how content is made, not just marketing, even I'm saying film content is made, original content is made, how scripts are written, how, for example, right now, one of the things that we have been doing with AI, I've heard large studios do, I don't know if you know Amazon context, but across the world, I know that when OTT came about, there was an AI technology which used to grade the content each frame, which humanly you will take 5 years to do, to ensure that no frame is out of sync, there is no problem. Look for example, violence, so you will do ratings. So all of that stuff is an implementation. But again, ये B2B हो रहा है. ये B2B2C जो वाला use case है, I think that will happen once the knowledge, and so maybe arguably Pepper Content का other thing that should, I will even put it on record, they should be disproportionately investing right now, apart from focusing about everything that you're doing to build the capabilities, is how do you make super accessible webinars, workshops, and make it almost very effective for best-in-class agencies, best-in-class marketers, best-in-class content producers, production houses, to just get them ingrained and get them started.
That makes absolute sense. In fact,
category grow करनी है यार.
हम लोग तो that's what we are in a category creation business, right? And हमारा पूरा aim है कि we want to educate people, because see, that's a question everyone knows of ChatGPT. Ask everyone how many of them tried it. A lot of them have tried it. Ask everyone how many of them use it. Few of them will raise it. Ask how many of you use it daily. Hardly any of them. Hardly any. And that's the education gap we ought to build. I think we'll be doing that big time. But यार मेरे पास बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन हैं अब, but I think in the interest of this conversation, I'm going to take this offline with you. Sure. Very, very interesting set of experiences, and
thank you, man.
I feel you're one of the, I mean, these guys would agree, one of those people जो ये video वाला side से हमारे पास में, like the niche you have catered to is very different than usual marketers, because हमारे पास जनरल लोग आके CAC का बात करते हैं, जनरल लोग आके conversions का बात करते हैं, product selling का बात करते हैं. This comes from very different niche, and I think
and that's really the fundamental difference. I'm not and I would be very candid to say that that's not my core forte. If you're going to ask me saying how do you build the funnel and ये बेच के इसकी movement optimize करनी है, I would say okay, let me find my friend from IMDb. But if you want to make the ad for it that everyone will talk about, I'll tell you how to do it.
No, great. But I think thanks for helping us out with this, and I mean, lovely to have you on the list. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.